before Rome, before Abraham. Before the desert tribes carved their god into stone, there was fire. There was the flame religion, and at the centre of it stood a man the world calls Zoroaster, but the truth is his real name is older than language. He wasn't a prophet, he wasn't a priest. He was the last public heir of an ancient flame order that guarded three things humanity wasn't meant to forget. Fire wasn't a symbol, it was a frequency, a living intelligence. The first light of source that the parasites have been trying to mimic ever since. The Magi knew the stars weren't decorations, they were gates. Every angel, demon and god in later religions comes from this early stargate knowledge. The law of duality, not good versus evil, but choice versus submission. Flame versus shadow, source versus inversion. This is the law the parasites needed to erase. But here's the part they'll never teach in school or church. Zoroastrianism was the blueprint for all three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, long before Abraham even existed. The ideas of heaven, hell, angels, demons, resurrection, the final judgment, the cosmic battle, all of that was taken directly from the flame religion, repackaged, diluted and rewritten for control. And who carried these codes? The Magi. Not three wise men, not storybook characters. They were astronomers, bloodline ritualists, flame-coded priests and gatekeepers of the original source knowledge. And their descendants, they never disappeared. They infiltrated Rome, shaped the Vatican, entered the black nobility, and shadow-ruled Europe for 2,000 years under new symbols but the same fire. The world calls them fire worshippers. That's the lie. The Magi never worshipped fire. They listened to it. To them, fire was the only thing on earth that still remembered where it came from. It crackled in a language older than writing. It pulsed with the original frequency of source, the flame before form, the truth before scripture. Every ritual, every temple, every lamp that burned without going out for centuries, none of it was symbolic. It was technology. A fire temple wasn't a place of prayer, it was a receiver, a stargate tether, a frequency anchor that kept the human spirit aligned with the path home. The Magi guarded this because they understood the risk. If the flame was lost, humanity would forget the exit. That's why they protected the codes in three ways. Certain lineages were trained from childhood to hear the tone inside the fire, the same tone flame-coded souls feel in their chest. These were the original watchers, not the fallen ones, but the ones who stayed human to guard humanity. Sky maps, not constellations. Gates. The Magi tracked alignments the same way modern astronomers track comets. Not as objects, but as windows. Every great crossing, every celestial event later tied to religion came from this map. Ritual of the three lights. This is the real origin of the three wise men myth. Three lights, not three men. Fire, star, soul. When these aligned, a gate opened. Religions turned it into a Christmas story. The Flame Order used it as a doorway. When Rome wanted to control the world, they had two choices: destroy the Flame Order or become it. So they married into it, literally. Certain Persian noble families' descendants were brought into Rome as converters, advisors, scribes, or saints, but they didn't convert to Christianity. Christianity converted to them. The Vatican's earliest rituals, its incense, its candles, its altars, its sacred architecture, all of it came from the Magi. The biggest secret? The first Christian monks, trained using Magi manuals, fire discipline without the fire. People think the Jesuits are soldiers of the church. They're not. They're the church's memory. They guard the old knowledge, they run the black archives, they keep the flame-coded manuscripts locked in vaults beneath the Vatican that the popes themselves rarely see. Their structure mirrors the ancient Magi orders perfectly. 3 ranks, a hidden master, oaths taken in darkness, secret astronomy training, a global intelligence network, and a mission to maintain the order of the world. Strip off the cassocks and Latin prayers, what you get is the last surviving administrative arm of the flame religion, inverted, weaponized, and serving the parasitic crown. And modern governments still bow to this order. Every nation that uses obelisks, eternal flames, sun symbols, stargates in architecture, flame-based insignia, phoenix emblems, black and gold state colours, is signalling allegiance to the old Magi hierarchy. Washington DC was built on it, the City of London still answers to it. The EU uses their stars, the UN uses their circle, the Vatican uses their flame. Even monarchies bend to it. The flame religion didn't die, it just changed uniforms. The world thinks it's ruled by politics, kings, presidents, religions, but behind all of them is one ancient inheritance. The ones who guarded source, lost it, inverted it, and built a cage from the ashes. The Magi weren't priests, they were engineers of spiritual physics. They guarded 3 codes. Fire wasn't worship, it was a living frequency, the purest symbol of source. When the flame burned clean, it created a resonance field that parasites couldn't enter. Temples weren't churches, they were frequency shields. Each angel, jinn, archon, watcher, or deity later religions talked about came from this older gatekeeping system. The purity code, this was the real reason their bloodline mattered, not race, not royalty, frequency. The Magi lineage carried a rare flame-responsive genetic signature the parasites could not mimic. This is why the bloodline had to be hunted or absorbed, and Rome chose absorption. Western historians lie on purpose. They say the Magi worshipped fire because they can't explain what fire actually was to the ancients. The sacred flame was a communication line to source, a signal disruptor that blocked entities, a purification field, a truth amplifier, and a manifestation engine when used with the right words. This is why the Magi kept the flame lit for 3,000 years. It wasn't superstition. It was technology. Rome took this concept and turned it into candles, incense, Easter fires, and the eternal flame in the Vatican courtyard, all symbolic copies of a power the Church no longer knew how to access. When Rome fell to Christianity, it didn't actually fall, it mutated. The families behind Rome didn't disappear, they moved sideways into the early church, the clerical aristocracy, the saint-making industry, and the bishop networks across Europe. Among those early church founders were families with Persian, Parthian, Median, and Sarmatian Magi roots. They didn't join the church to serve Christ, they joined to control the narrative. This is why the Vatican uses sun symbols, the papal mitre looks like the old Magi flame helm. The Pope sits between twin pillars, Magi architecture, and Catholicism is obsessed with saints, angels, demons, and judgment, all stolen concepts from Zoroaster's flame doctrine. The Vatican became the new mask of the flame order, but inverted. When the Magi bloodlines needed a new vehicle, they created the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. But don't let the name fool you. The Jesuits were master astronomers, ritualists, political strategists, infiltrators, and protectors of ancient knowledge. The Jesuits didn't serve Jesus, they served the old families. They became the Vatican's intelligence agency, the engineers of colonial expansion, the designers of modern education, the writers of most religious doctrine, and the final guard dogs of the old flame bloodline. They have always moved as the shadow government of the Church. Every president, prime minister, king, and global executive today bows to systems crafted by the Magi descendants. The legal system, based on Roman canon law, the calendar, rewritten by Jesuits, the financial system, built by black nobility banking families, the universities, all Jesuit-modelled, the religious doctrines, the Catholic Protestant split, and the symbolism still used in ceremonies worldwide. It's not Christianity running things, it's not Rome, it's not the Church. It's the post-Magi flame order, the ones who inverted the fire, stole the gates, hid the maps, and built the global stage around a broken copy of the original source flame. And they still run it today. By the time Rome fell, they were embedded. Hidden bloodlines, hidden schools, hidden fire. The world thinks Christianity spread because people converted. No, it spread because Rome absorbed the flame keepers, rewrote their symbols, and weaponized their Stargate knowledge into theology. The Vatican was not built by fishermen. It was built by astronomer priests, by exiled Persian houses, by families who carried the flame codes in their blood, the same families who became the black nobility. And here is the part they never want the public to see. They rebranded. When Christianity absorbed Europe, the Magi became the early church fathers, the custodian families of Rome, the keepers of relics and holy fire, and eventually the Jesuit order. The Jesuits weren't created to teach children. They were created to guard the old knowledge, the star maps, the fire codes, the ritual mechanics of the soul, the ancient flame architecture. They are the final mask of the Magi, and every pope since the 1500s has been surrounded by them like a private shadow council. They infiltrate royalty, they infiltrate governments, they infiltrate universities. They rewrite history, maps, cosmology, timelines, because the original flame religion held the blueprint of the realm. The Vatican became the central vault for stolen Magi knowledge. The real cosmology, the non-physical, the gate-opening rituals, the soul-tracking systems, the sky architecture, and the ancestral flame mechanics. Every empire bowed to Rome because Rome was not Roman anymore. It was Persian flame wearing a Christian mask. And today, every major government still bends knee to this ancient order. You can see it in coronation rituals, oaths, symbols on seals, state funerals, and the global calendar system. The Magi flame never died. It went underground, into marble halls, into Jesuit chambers, into secret societies, into the black nobility bloodlines that still move world events like chess. This is why every world leader travels to Rome, not for religion, but for permission. If the Magi were the first flame keepers, the Jesuits became the last mask. Not the monks you see in robes, not missionaries, not teachers. The Jesuit order was built as a containment net, a way to hide the last Magi bloodlines in plain sight while pretending to serve Christ. Let me break it open. When Rome absorbed the Persian world, they didn't destroy the Magi, they recruited them. And when the Vatican rose, those same families moved inside the walls. But over time, their faces became too visible. The black nobility, the Venetian shadow families, the Persian-Roman hybrids. People started noticing the pattern. Fire symbols, sun emblems, star codes. The same rituals repeated under Christian names. So the Vatican built a new mask, the Society of Jesus, but the irony is vicious. The Jesuits have almost nothing to do with Jesus. They are the rebirth of the Magi under a holy disguise. The black robes, copy of the ancient flamekeeper's mourning colour. The IHS emblem, a sun symbol older than Rome. Their obsession with astronomy, education and global mapping, direct continuation of the Magi's Stargate work. The Jesuits became the intelligence network of the entire world centuries before MI6, CIA, Mossad or the European Union. They controlled kings, colonies, universities, calendars, maps, and every discovery that shaped history, not because they were religious, but because they were flame-coded descendants guarding the one thing the parasites fear, the original knowledge of the sky. And here's the part that flips everything. Modern governments still bow to them, not to the Vatican as a church, but to the bloodline inside the Vatican that controls finance, ritual, diplomacy, and cosmic knowledge. Every president visits the Pope, every prime minister bends the knee. Every monarchy takes the trip to Rome, not for blessing, but for permission. Their lineage moves like a shadow flame through history. The Persian fire priesthood, keepers of star maps, soul gates, and the original flame code. Roman mystery orders where their rituals were hidden inside secret cults after Persia fell. The black nobility ancient bloodlines who carried their symbols into European rule. The Vatican throne where doctrine was reskinned as religion and sold as salvation. The Jesuit order, the final mask, the intelligence branch, the enforcers, the watchers. Modern governments, every state, crown and institution still bows to this architecture because the system they use is the Magi system, inverted and weaponized. And the reason the world still feels directed today, because it is. The same line that watched the stars 4,000 years ago still watches the world leaders now. This is why they keep the sky knowledge locked. This is why they fear any real awakening. This is why flame-coded souls like you threaten their entire system. When the Persian Empire fell, the Flame Order didn't die, it scattered. They were initiates trained to move silently through courts, temples and governments, and they took the flame codes with them. They embedded themselves into a new host, Rome. Rome didn't convert to Christianity, hid it under new symbols, and built the Vatican upon the bones of an older fire religion. The robes changed, the language changed, the architecture stayed the same, and the bloodlines, they walked in untouched. Rome inherited the flame priesthood but couldn't let people know where it came from. So the teachings were inverted, not deleted. Fire became hellfire, stars became angels, duality became obedience, cosmic gates became relics, source became church authority, and the Magi descendants became the black nobility, the families behind the throne, not on it. These families built the Vatican as a fortress of fire secrets. But to protect those secrets, they needed an order that could shape kings, infiltrate nations, and move invisible across borders. So they forged one, the Jesuit order. Not monks, not scholars, not missionaries. Jesuits are the final mask of the Magi, trained in astronomy, linguistics, diplomacy, intelligence, and psychological warfare. Every empire has spies, only one has a priesthood trained for it since Persia. And today their descendants sit in governments, finance, intelligence agencies, religious councils, NGO boards and elite academic networks. This is why every major government still bows, quietly, to the same ancient order. The history books will tell you that Rome conquered Persia, but anyone with flame-coded eyes can see the truth. Rome didn't conquer anything. It absorbed, it imitated, it copied, and then it crowned itself with stolen fire. Rome wasn't a spiritual empire. It was a battlefield of competing gods. Mithras, Jupiter, Cybele, Isis, Baal, Moloch, all separate masks fighting for dominance. But when the Magi entered the picture, they brought something no Roman cult had: a unified cosmic law, a fire ritual older than Babylon, and the ability to read the sky like a map. Rome knelt to that, quietly, secretly, and then publicly through its mystery cults. Mithraism, the Roman soldier religion, was not Roman. It was Persian flame ritual rewritten for the legions. From there, the Magi influence entered the Senate, then the imperial families, and finally the hidden families. The ones you now know as the black nobility, the shadow houses, the gatekeepers behind the Vatican throne. By the time Christianity appeared, the takeover was complete. The new religion didn't rise, it was engineered, coded, and assembled like a machine. Everything from angels to demons, to hell to resurrection, to the final judgment comes straight from the Persian flame religion, but inverted, so humans would serve the system instead of activating their own flame. The Magi didn't vanish, they were simply absorbed into Rome's ultimate mask, the Vatican. From the ancient fire temples to Rome's inner circle, to the Vatican's sealed chambers, to the Jesuit intelligence network, and into the meeting rooms where global policy is decided today. The same line has been watching, guiding, manipulating, and maintaining its hold. They changed the symbols, they changed the language, they changed the gods, but they never changed the agenda. Control the flame and you control the world. And that is why the system still bows, quietly, obediently, to an order most people don't even know exists. An order older than Abraham, older than Rome, older than every story ever written about light and dark. Because once you see how the Magi codes travelled from the Persian fire temples to the Roman mystery cults into the black nobility, under the Vatican's robes, and finally behind the Jesuit mask, you start to realise something terrifying. The lineage didn't vanish, it just changed uniforms. The same flame keepers who once read the sky for kings are now the ones writing laws, controlling nations and deciding which version of God the world is allowed to worship. And the deeper you go, the more one question starts to burn. What exactly are their descendants guarding today? And why are they so desperate to keep the true fire buried? Next time, we follow the flame into the institutions you were told were holy, into the councils you weren't meant to know existed, and into the real purpose of the global religious grid. This story doesn't end, it only gets darker, older, and closer to the truth. And that is where the trail goes cold on purpose. Because once the Magi flame moved into the Vatican vaults, once the black nobility sealed their bloodlines behind crowns and robes, once the Jesuit order learned how to hide a religion inside a religion, the world was never supposed to trace it back again. But we just did. We've followed the flame from Persia through Rome, into the Vatican, through the Jesuits, and into modern governments. And the pattern hasn't changed in 2,500 years. Every empire still bends to an older fire. Every leader still answers to a hidden priesthood. And every religion is still running a script written long before the desert prophets ever walked the earth. Because the next part isn't about temples or churches at all. It's about the bloodlines that survived, the descendants who still guard the fire, and the real war happening behind the world stage today.